So there is a lot of room for a sensible, common sense foreign policy. And it goes back to the Constitution. But not only is this a detriment to us militarily and for our national security, it's a great detriment to us economically. You can't ignore these dollars that we're spending. Besides, I see politically the real opportunity is cut hundreds of billions of dollars out of the military-industrial complex that doesn't help our national defense. And then we don't have to take this politically unpopular stand that many have on our side and say, what we need to do is cut medical care for the children. I mean, that's not a good point to make. It's more difficult. I think all the programs should be cut. I don't vote for them because they're unconstitutional, but I still think emphasizing big cuts overseas could alleviate some of these problems in a political way that would be more acceptable. But this is going to be worked out in Congress today. They're trying to figure out whether we should raise the national debt. And they're arguing once again, if we don't, like if we didn't come to the rescue and bail out all the rich guys in 2008, it would be a depression. Sure, there would have been a depression for Wall Street, but the depression was dumped on the people instead. So instead of making the correct economic policy changes, like lower taxes, less regulations, a sound currency, property rights, and paying off the debt, a few things like that, what did we do? We've had all these problems from too much spending and too much taxing and too much regulation, too much borrowing, too much printing press money. So, oh yeah, we're in trouble now. The bubble has burst, so we really have to pump harder. I mean, we have to put more money in, spend more money, borrow more money, tax more money, regulate more, and print more money. And guess what? We're not out of the recession. We're still in recession, and it's going to get worse. This foreign policy is related because it's a significant amount of our spending and the printing of money. There's an important thing. There's going to be a lot of talk about inflation, because inflation is here. But it's very important that we define inflation the way free market economists do. Inflation is when they print money and increase the money supply. The consequence of inflating a monetary system will be higher prices. Unpredictable, where the money goes and when it happens and to what degree, because there's a lot of elements built in. But inevitably, when you devalue the currency, the prices will go up, and we're at the beginning of a big siege on inflation. They say that we have to vote, for the debt increase. And by the way, I'm not going to vote for the debt increase. Their argument is it would be a disaster if we defaulted. Well, it is a disaster if we default, and we're in the midst of a default, and we've done it before. We've done it from the beginning of our history. We defaulted with the continental dollar. We defaulted with the greenbacks in the Civil War period. We defaulted in the 1930s when the American people were denied their gold from their gold bonds that they held, and the gold was confiscated from us. And then in 1971, our promise to all foreign holders of dollars could repatriate their dollars for gold. We disclosed the window and said, we're broke, we can't do it anymore. So we default constantly. Now they're talking about defaulting that there won't be enough cash. That's not the default to worry about. The default is on you, because the default is they're going to print the money, the national debt will probably be raised, they're going to continue to print the money, which means that they're going to devalue your dollar, and they're defaulting on you. Because if you have a savings account or a treasury bill, if you have $1,000 in it this year, and right now prices are going up closer to 10% a year, so in 1 year you could lose $100 out of $1,000. And when it gets going, it's going to be a lot worse than that. That is a default, but they don't count it that way. They don't count it that way. That is just price adjustment. Matter of fact, it's a deliberate policy of the Federal Reserve to depreciate the currency. That's what their business is. That is why our dollar since 1913 has lost 98% of its value. That's dishonest, it's immoral, it's unconstitutional, and the reason why we ought to get rid of the Federal Reserve. a lot of reasons why we shouldn't have a central bank. It's not authorized in the Constitution. It devalues the currency. That's immoral. It's bad economic policy. But the one issue that really is dangerous to our cause of liberty is that it allows the expansion of government. If we did not have a Fed to buy the debt, that is the moral hazard provided to the Congress. We don't have to be responsible because ultimately the Federal Reserve will keep the interest rates from going up even when we can't tax and can't borrow. The Federal Reserve will print the money and keep interest rates low. So it's always there to do that. And then that facilitates the growth of government. Whether it's the growth of government to fight wars that we shouldn't be in or fighting and providing cradle-to-grave entitlement system. So the Fed is a culprit and we have to address that. We cannot solve our problems without looking at the monetary issue. The great thing about what has happened in the last 4 years is all of a sudden the Federal Reserve and monetary policy has become an issue out on the table. That is a great victory, and I thank so many of you who have helped. Though we did not get our audit the Fed bill passed, although we did get it passed in the House, but it wasn't passed in the Senate. But a lot has happened. We got a partial audit, and some court cases have been beneficial. We are getting more information, and it's astounding. As much as I've anticipated it would be very, very bad, but more than a third of these trillions of dollars that they have pumped in to help out their friends, a third of it went to overseas banks. Not to the American who's losing money. And one bank got bailed out, and guess who was one-third owner? Gaddafi was one-third owner in the bank. They were going to bail him out. So this is the reason that we should direct our interest to the preservation of liberty to the people in this country and taking care of ourselves, being prosperous, set a good example, and others will want to emulate us. We cannot spread our goodness with a gun, and using a gun violates our goodness. Liberty should be our cause. I believe for myself that all political activity is for the promotion of liberty, with a deep conviction that liberty and freedom is not perfect, will not solve all our problems, but it will do more good than all the government intervention in the world. A lot of times terms are thrown around, conservative, libertarian, liberal, and all. I like the word intervention. I don't like to have a government that is an intervener, that the government doesn't come in and tell you what to do with your life. They don't tell you what to do with your money, and we don't tell other countries what to do with their problems either. That is in many ways, I believe a good president would work in the direction of saying that I want to do less. But I want to firmly and courageously stand up to those who want to do more. They use an authoritarian approach, and when they do, everything that they do undermines your personal liberty. So it undermines everything that was good and great about America. We were never a perfect nation. We don't have a perfect document. But I tell you what, we had the best. We were the most prosperous ever, and there's still a lot of spirit left in this country. So we are now in a struggle. We are in a struggle against those who are saying, and they're angry, we want more, don't cut our benefits. To our group, we're saying, we've had enough. What we want is we want our freedom back. The reason I work so hard for personal liberty is a very important reason. It's for myself, it's for my family, my friends, and my neighbors in our country. Because I believe if we did have our liberties, we would have more prosperity. It is truly a humanitarian argument because the other side, they do not produce. But more importantly, I think a free society offers tremendous opportunities. It really releases us, gives us the time and the wealth to release more creative energies. And it's in these creative energies, then we can deal with our problems, whether it's our personal habits, whether it has to do with our economic conditions and helping other people, or whether it's dealing with other countries. We will have the wealth. And with this effort, then we can work on our own imperfections to improve ourselves, to work on becoming more virtuous and more compassionate. And this is the society that I want to live in. So regardless, and from the very beginning, it was regardless of what happens, the goal is a very important goal. And I am so pleased to see what's happening in the country. Not only the interest in the Federal Reserve and the foreign policy, but the interest in the understanding of liberty. And where I go, the numbers are growing. And where I really get excited is when I go to the university and talk to the young people. They understand what they're getting. And they understand that something different has to be done. And they also understand that whether they're in high school or in college, the burden will be falling on them. No matter what happens in the next election, this cannot be changed immediately. It can only be changed. One individual can't do it. It can only be changed if the people endorse the changes and our representatives that get sent to our legislature understand it and do it. And that is where I think we're making great progress. When I first started, I had difficulty in the 1950s even finding the literature. I had an inclination to study and read, but it took a long time. There was no internet. The books were hard to find. Today, it is so great to use the internet to find out what's going on. More think tanks than ever before. And also, if I need a book now, I can get it about 5-10 seconds off Amazon, out of the internet, and it's in my house the next day. So big things are happening, and we have to take that and use it for a just cause. And that just cause is promoting the greatness of America and promoting individual liberty in our country. Thank you very much.
Dr. Paul's going to make his way to the front of the building. So if you'd like an autograph or to get a picture taken, he'll be at the front. So if we can get an orderly line. If you have a Sharpie, you can cut the line to the front. He can only do about 15 to 20 minutes because we have an interview to do. So if you can please let Dr. Paul go to the front of the building. You can see him on your way out. Have your cameras ready. Have any literature ready you want to sign, and if you have a Sharpie, you get to cut to the front if you keep it.